Hello and welcome to the podcast that doesn't track back but wins everything in the air. It's the big man up top.
Yes, it is. Hello, Ed.
Hello, Joe. How are you?
I'm good. It's nice to have you back.
I know. It feels like a sort of a return. You know, when you have like your key man who gets injured.
Sure.
And then somebody jumps in and is actually arguably better.
Are you saying that you're the Alison Becker of the situation?
It could well be.
Joel's the Quivine Kelleher.
Yeah, that sounds
And now
about
you're
right.
back to reclaim the number one spot.
Completely undeserved. But yeah, no, it's good to be back. It's good to be back.
Well, it's great to have you back. Did you have a nice week off?
I did, and I spent time in my holiday home in Wales listening to the podcast that you and Joel did last week. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Ed, for your kind words.
Let's get started with Bible Ballers. I've been a week off. I've been reading all the books of the Bible.
All of them. Studying the contents page.
More specifically,
non-stop.
just the titles.
Yeah.
So I'm ready, Joe. I'm ready.
Well, last week, Joel asked me the question.
Yeah, and I feel like you got off a bit easy.
Do you think?
Yeah, I do.
Would you have got that one right?
Well, I'm not sure on that. That's not the question here.
Sure.
But I feel like it was a bit of a friendly match. I'm not entirely sure that should count towards your total.
You don't think?
It was like a League Cup game, you know. A goal in the League Cup game on a Wednesday night against lower league opposition.
Well, I'd say that still counts towards the overall stats in all competitions.
Maybe.
Do you not think?
Well, we'll see. But it's your turn to quiz me, isn't it, this week?
It is. So this is Guess the Player with a Difference. I'm going to ask Ed a trivia question where he has to guess the player I am thinking of. The twist is that this player is going to share the first name with a book in the Bible. Mm-hmm. Are you ready, Ed?
Yes, I am.
I think this is quite a nice question.
Oh, no.
This week,
I'd much rather you just give me a hard one and then I don't get it anyway.
Okay.
Than you tell me it's remotely gettable and then I still don't get it.
Sure. Okay. Well, your question this week is, which Premier League goalkeeper has made the most saves this season?
Ooh.
Short and snappy question.
Goodness me. Well, you've got to think of teams that have been absolutely battered regularly.
Sure.
Jordan Pickford's always up there. But,
makes a lot of saves.
No Book of Jordan.
No, not yet.
Andre Onana.
Yeah.
No Book of Andre? Well, at least I don't think so.
No. Well, there's a limited pool of players to choose from here, so you should really, this is a bit of a tap-in.
Theoretically. Well, can I have a bit of time to think about it?
I'll give you the rest of the episode, I think, Ed, to have a think of who you think it might be.
Thanks very much, Joe.
Another blockbuster weekend of football.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah, loads going on this weekend. Loads going on.
Quite a season-defining weekend, I would say.
Yeah, I think so. And we'll come on to the big question, I think, the big Liverpool question in a bit. But shall we start with Arsenal?
Yes, I think this was probably the biggest result of the weekend, I would say.
Yeah.
Arsenal going through a bit of an injury crisis. Started with Mikel Merino up front again.
Yeah.
Didn't think it worked this time.
No, exactly. And I mean, are Arsenal just making excuses at this point? Because we know we've seen them in seasons where they have had recognised strikers and still bottle it.
Yeah.
And that's just what this feels like. It feels like another Arsenal bottling, Joe, to me.
A little bit. We don't like to throw out the word bottle too much, do we?
No,
Ed,
but I mean, you know, I'm happy to.
I mean, it feels like this, and we are going to come on to that question that everyone's asking, Ed, is it over? But I feel like this felt like the season that Arsenal should do it.
Yeah,
right?
They've built such a style of play under Arteta where people know what to expect, but it's almost been unplayable at times. The only thing is that they've just suffered from bad losses at bad times, I think. Yeah. And that's been the key thing for me, is actually their home form has been really, really good. I believe this was the first defeat at home this season.
Yeah, so they were the last remaining team not to lose at home all season, but that has been ended by West Ham, who played really well.
Yeah, they did. Potter, he's already enjoying himself there, isn't he?
This was a vintage Potter performance. You know, he loves to set up quite defensively, 5 at the back, get a 1-0. And you saw this at Brighton, is that they don't score that many goals.
No.
Not known for their free scoring capabilities, but defensively very solid. And that's what we saw in this game. I saw this interesting stat actually before, Ed, that Arsenal, under Arteta, they've played 20 games against Newcastle, Fulham, Aston Villa and West Ham collectively, and he's only won 4 of them. So it really feels like higher mid-table teams are kind of his Achilles heel.
Yeah.
As a manager. He doesn't really know what to do with them.
Yeah, exactly. What did you make of the Lewis Skelly red card, Joe?
It's an interesting one, actually. I think so. He was given a yellow initially, upgraded to a red card. Kudus was quite far out. Miles Lewis Skelly clearly impeded him. I think the big thing here is where David Raya was.
Yes.
He was very far out of goal. I think Kudus could have shot and scored from where he was. What
I love about this is that it's a red card on the basis that he would have had a shot from about 45 yards. But look, Stoke players are scoring goals from that sort of distance.
Absolutely.
So you've got to just assume anybody can score from absolutely.
You had to get that reference in there.
Anyway, I certainly did because I wasn't here last week. But obviously, the flip side of Arsenal losing was that Liverpool needed to capitalise, and they sure did, didn't they?
Yeah, and this has been the story of the season, I think. When Liverpool have dropped points, Arsenal haven't been able to capitalise on that. The flip side of this is that when Arsenal have dropped points, Liverpool have been able to capitalise on this. And watching this as a Liverpool fan, going into this City game felt massive until that Arsenal result. Yeah. It didn't so much feel like a free hit because there's no such thing as a free hit in a title race, but the pressure was massively off. Yeah,
that's the thing. For me, the difference is that Liverpool have been very good leaders in the sense that you see teams that are clinging on to the top and they struggle under the pressure. And actually, just that extra breathing room of, Arsenal have lost. You felt like Liverpool played with so much freedom. They won without getting out of second gear, in all honesty. Yeah. City were poor again, and we can come on to that in a bit, but I think Liverpool just looks so strong.
I think particularly the centre-backs played really well in this game. Trent, quite suspect at the back, as he often is. I think Doku took him on a record number of times in this game. But once he got past Trent, he didn't really have an answer. Konate or Van Dijk were always there. But yeah, really comfortable, really controlled. There was a really interesting moment in the second half where Curtis Jones had a goal disallowed, would have made it 3-0. Comfortable, killed the game. It was disallowed for offside, and that kind of lifted City, lifted the crowd. But Liverpool just slowed the game down massively at that point, and that's what they've been so good at doing all season.
Very professional. I'm going to ask you the question. Are they the champions elect?
You're not getting any quotes from me.
No, you're not going to nail your colours to the mast.
I'm not going to do that.
Say you've won the league.
What's interesting though, I think there's been a bit of chat around Liverpool having a blip the last few games, and I think Pep Guardiola's Man City have kind of ruined what a title race looks like. Yeah, if you know what I mean. You expect perfection in a title race, whereas 5-6 years ago, you see a 2-2 draw away at Villa, 2-2 draw away at Everton is quite positive. Yeah. I think now you see it as drop points.
Well, this is it, and I remember even going back to Fergie's time at United, you had these teams where they would only lose 3 games all season, and now Liverpool have only lost once so far this season, and we're talking about blips.
And the Invincibles drew so many games.
Yeah, for me, Liverpool, I don't think it's a big thing to say they've won it at this stage.
And I don't think it's even to do with the points total. I think you watch how both teams played this weekend. Yeah. Liverpool looks so confident. They look like they know what they're doing, whereas Arsenal, you don't trust them to go on a run, and they just don't have anything going forward.
Let's touch on City. I don't think there's a great deal to say except poor again. They as a side look like the shadow of their former selves. Kevin De Bruyne particularly.
I think that's the saddest thing about the whole thing.
Yeah,
he's one of the best players we've ever seen in the Premier League, and I think it was summed up the end of the first half. Do you see that shot he had from about 30 yards? Kevin De Bruyne in his prime crosses that to the far post and creates a chance, but he just looked pretty desperate, looks way off it, and you compare that to how Mo Salah's looking at a similar age. It's quite sad to see.
It really is, and I'm sure we'll see glimpses of Kevin De Bruyne at his best again, but
when they play Plymouth at home in a couple of weeks.
Right, let's have a look at Newcastle 4, Forest 3. What a game this was, Joe.
Absolute cracker.
Seven goal thriller.
Really good game, really weird game. Forest went ahead in the 6th minute. Great goal by Callum Hudson-Odoi.
Yes,
it was at that point I decided to assemble a flat pack shoe storage unit. And had one eye on the game.
This is very Sunday half watching football stuff, isn't it?
I thought that was the game I'd choose instead of the Liverpool City game, and I probably missed the better game. Yeah, to be honest with you.
For me, it's making Sunday dinner.
Okay.
So, you like to have the game on your laptop. I'm the cook in our house,
okay?
So I'll be cooking Sunday dinner,
You're
got the
kind of
game on.
parboiling your potatoes at half time.
Exactly, all that sort of stuff.
Good.
Yeah, very good. But
yeah, the shoe storage was a success, thanks for asking.
Great. Newcastle, I think they looked really good. Once they went down, didn't they? Obviously, they suffered from that early goal, but then they just looked so good, so dominant in front of goal, I think. They always look like they're going to get 3 or 4 goals, don't they?
Yeah, they were relentless. They scored 4 goals in 12 minutes. And they could go on to score more. One of the weirdest penalties I've ever seen by Alexander Isak. Tried the Panenka. Matt Sells got a hand to it but still didn't save it. Threw himself to the back of the net. But yeah, 4-1 up at half-time. You thought it was over. And then a resurgent Nottingham Forest came back to 4-3 in the dying embers of the game and turned it into a bit more of a close game than it should have been for Newcastle.
Yeah, absolutely. But what do you think about both of these teams? Now, there's a lot going on at that part of the table, and I think especially given the unlikely event that there's a real title race, and also at the bottom end there's unlikely to be much going on in the relegation spots. It's going to be all about that Champions League qualification.
Yeah,
isn't it?
and that's so often the case, I think, the past few seasons. This has been the thing that goes down to the wire. But this season especially feels really exciting there, I think, because there's a likelihood that there'll be 5 Champions League places this season due to how well they're all doing in the Champions League. Then you've got the Europa League, got the Conference League. Anyone down to 11th are in the race for European places, and I think that's really exciting. You've still got Forest and Bournemouth up there for the Champions League, both faltering this weekend, but it's so tight that it's anyone's game.
Absolutely. I think 2 teams that you would have been talking about European places a few years ago and are very much not now, Everton and Manchester United. But they played out a really entertaining 2-2 draw.
Well, I think you saw this on the running order and you thought, this is going to be a thriller. Any game at Goodison at the moment feels like it's entertaining. David Moyes has brought back good feeling.
Yeah, that sort of fear factor about Goodison being a difficult place to go.
And that's not been the case for a while, I don't think. And this was a really good game. Beto continues to look like a prime Thierry Henry.
Beto and Decore, I thought both looked absolutely... They looked like world beaters, didn't they?
Yeah.
Everton looking really, really good. One of the things I do want to say, to give United their due, was they looked pretty much dead and buried, didn't they? And they got themselves back into the game. A really great response from United. Managed to claw it back to 2-2. What do you think of the penalty at the end? Ashley Young very much throwing himself to the ground.
I think it was a bit of a dive, wasn't it?
It was.
I think it's interesting that VAR took a look at it. I don't think it was a penalty at all, but I think there's been a thing this season of VAR not trying to interfere in these decisions, and I think there clearly is a shirt pull. And I don't think you'd expect them to overturn it, but objectively it's not a penalty at all.
Part of me was thinking they're not going to overturn it because it's not enough for them to overturn it, but quite obviously, like you say, it wasn't a penalty. I think justice was done there. Moving towards the bottom of the table, a huge away win for Wolves at high-flying Bournemouth, and a really vital 3 points for them.
Yeah, massive. Bournemouth's been a really hard place to go this season. Not many teams win there. But Vitor Pereira's kind of turned Wolves into this really solid Premier League outfit. They're only 5 points ahead of the relegation zone. But the last few weeks, even the game at Anfield, in that second half, you look at them as a completely different side to what they were under Gary O'Neill. And again, in this game, he's got them all playing around Matthias Cunha, which is what they want, I think, what he wants. He wants to be the star player. He wants everything to be built around him. That's what they're doing. They're getting results. And it's looking good.
Well, this is it, and it's the difference between them and Ipswich is, again, Ipswich losing 4-1 at home to Tottenham. Ipswich actually gave Tottenham quite a good account in that game, despite the goals. I thought the scoreline maybe flattered Spurs a little bit, but it's that thing of Ipswich are sort of playing well-ish, but still losing, not getting results. And Wolves, a scrappy 1-0. I mean, I know they played well, but getting the 3 points at this stage is so vital. And like you say, that is now a 5-point gap, and you struggle to see any of those bottom 3 teams getting out of it.
I can't see it happening at all. Even Leicester, home to Brentford on Friday, looked really disappointing. I don't know what's going on there. Ruud van Nistelrooy clearly isn't cut out for Premier League management.
Certainly off this showing, he's struggling. A great comeback win for Villa, wasn't it, Joe?
Yeah, really exciting game this. I think everyone's watching Villa with that sense of anticipation at the moment. They've made some really exciting signings in January, Marcus Rashford and Marco Asensio.
Yeah.
And both of them combining for both Villa goals in this game. And I think it's a really exciting time to be a Villa fan. We said this last week, and they're just great to watch at the moment. They're very competitive, and I fancy them to shoot up the table towards Champions League spaces.
Yeah, and they've got a lot of options going forward, especially with, adding Asensio and Rashford in like they have. What I'd say is that because there's been a lot of hype about Rashford now, and I would say I'd maybe sort of add caution. Oh. He's underperformed for years now, and he's come to Villa and he's looked really bright, and we really want that. Let's maybe not get carried away. I don't know. What do you think, Joe?
Marcus Rashford's the kind of player that I think a lot of us want to see do well.
Yeah.
I think he's quite likeable.
Yeah.
I say that as a Liverpool fan, but I think he's obviously done a lot of good outside of football, and I think he's got quite a good reputation as a person. I think his attitude in training clearly has been questioned quite a lot. He's the kind of player that needs to play for a manager he believes in. I think he's got that at Villa, but I think we need to see how it goes the rest of the season, whether this is a bit of a, like you have the new manager bounce.
New club bounce.
Exactly, yeah. I think there could be an element of that. He's been set free from the shackles of Manchester United. He's been forced into a good-feeling club of Aston Villa. If he continues to play well, is he back in the picture for the England squad? You told me not to get ahead of myself, but...
You already are.
I am. But who's competing for that left-sided position?
Because previously there's been the likes of Foden and Grealish. It's not had good seasons.
Yeah.
Anthony Gordon possibly is your number one spot at the moment. So who knows? And
the winner in this game, Ed, was a bit of an error by the Chelsea goalkeeper Jorgensen.
Yes, it wasn't great. It's been crossed in by Rashford. Asensio's hit it first time, and I think he's not quite ready. He's slow to get down to it. It's squirmed under him, hasn't it? It wasn't great goalkeeping.
Didn't cover himself in glory, and this has been the conversation around Chelsea all season. They kind of had two mediocre keepers that they're rotating. No one's really claimed that number one spot. The thing is, you don't get a successful team without a really good keeper. And I think that's where they struggle this season.
Speaking of struggling, I've really struggled to keep on top of all the football, Joe, because I've been on holiday.
You have, haven't you?
I've been spending too much time organising murder mystery parties.
Did you have a murder mystery party?
Yeah, well, we were away in a lovely house in Wales for my father-in-law's birthday. It was a big birthday. But yeah, because of that, I struggled to keep track of the Football League. Now, I followed Stoke, obviously.
Of course you did.
But I asked you to step in as EFL correspondent this
Yes,
week.
I'm going to give it a go. Just a few highlights from the EFL, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
I think the biggest story from the Championship is probably Hull.
Yeah.
They managed to get a 1-0 away win at Sunderland.
Absolutely massive.
High-flying Sunderland. Dropped off a little bit recently, but quite comfortably in the playoff positions. But Hull went to Sunderland this weekend, got a 1-0 win, managed to go up to 20th place, and they stay there on goal difference.
Yeah,
so
that's huge. Again, and the thing is, at this stage of the season, you're just looking for anything to push you into another gear. So if you're down near the bottom of the table, or if you're pushing for playoffs, just that one win can really spur you on for a bit of a run, and that'll make all the difference the whole season, I'm sure.
100%. Doesn't matter how you get the 3 points. Just
certainly doesn't.
Elsewhere, Burnley incredibly achieved their 12th successive clean sheet.
Remarkable, isn't it?
Of the season. It's not been pretty. Even this 4-0 win at home to Sheffield Wednesday wasn't pretty. I think it's quite a flattering scoreline. But a big difference for them has been Marcus Edwards.
Yes.
Who signed from Sporting Club de Portugal.
Well done, yeah.
Thank you very much. This season. He's been a bit of a revelation for them going forward. Quite a high-profile signing for them. And he's really made a difference. They're on for a playoff position in the Championship, and it'll be really interesting to see if they get promoted, have they learned from last time? Because it clearly feels like they have a style of play now that defensively is very good.
Yeah. But to be honest, you only have to look at Southampton to see where that's gone wrong. A team that played really good football but just gifted teams goals at will. So who knows? But I back them to do quite well if they are to get promoted. let's have a look at League One, Joe.
Yes, well, when I heard I was the EFL correspondent for this weekend, I took my responsibility very seriously.
Did you?
Last Tuesday, I went to the Virtue Trophy semi-final.
Oh, lovely.
Birmingham against Bradford.
Very good, very good.
I was in the away end because one of my friends is a Bradford fan, so I was with them for the game. What I didn't like about this game, Ed, and I don't know if this is a common occurrence, every time there's a corner, it comes up on the screen, corner sponsored by.
Oh, don't like that.
Why are we sponsoring corners?
No, we don't like that at all.
It got me thinking, should we sponsor a corner?
We could do.
The Big Man Up Top podcast?
Yeah.
Where would you like to... Probably Ayr United, right?
Well, yeah,
somewhere in Scotland.
Somewhere in Scotland, yeah.
Maybe we should start sponsoring their corners.
Yeah, let's think about that. I think we need a team that really encapsulates everything that we're about on this podcast. So
I reckon so. But Birmingham won in the semi-final. They had a very entertaining game, actually. Very cold.
Yeah.
And they followed that up with a 0-0 at Reading, which is quite disappointing for the League One leaders, but they're still in a very healthy position at the top. In League Two, Walsall also have a very healthy position at the top. They extended their lead to 12 points with a 2-0 win away at Morecambe. And just below, it's very tight. You've got this kind of cluster of clubs that are separated by 3 points from second to sixth.
It's all going on. It's all going on at League Two, isn't it?
All going on. It's going to be a very exciting end to the season.
Now, Joe, I thought it'd be good if we had a conversation today about managers, and in particular sort of how that relates to leadership. We're at that stage of the season where you're starting to see some teams unravel as it becomes clear they're maybe not where they hoped they would be. And so as a result, you're seeing sort of examples of good leadership, but you're also seeing some maybe not so good examples of leadership. And so I thought it'd be good to chat about managers and what we think about managers, Joe.
Yeah, and I think this comes down to what do you want to see from your manager? You just watch your team play, whether they've won or lost. And I think there's a growing trend the last few seasons of managers coming out and being quite brutally honest about the team that they manage. So a few examples of this. Scott Parker, a couple of seasons ago when he was managing Bournemouth, he made a few scathing comments about the players in the team, kind of pointed towards the board, saying that they didn't reinforce in the summer, but he was saying that this team isn't good enough. Ruud van Nistelrooy this weekend also said a similar thing. He was quoted saying that we have to accept that we're in a position now where every week we're going to come up against a team who are better than us. Essentially saying this team isn't good enough. We saw it as well this season with Rob Edwards at Luton saying that it's because the players aren't working hard enough. They're not a good enough quality to compete. So this is happening more and more. I think as well with the last couple of Manchester United managers, you've seen this brutal honesty of where they think the team's at. Ruben Amorim has said this is the worst United team for a while. So we're seeing this more and more.
And so I think a really good way to start off actually would be to talk about good managers. So I'm going to ask you a question. As your time as a football fan, who do you think your favourite manager has been and why? And I'm asking you to ignore like on-pitch tactics, but just their style and their personality.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious one for me is Jurgen Klopp, and not because of the success he brought to Liverpool, although that's a massive part of it. I think you want to hear what he's got to say. I think he had a lot of character, a lot of charisma.
One of the things I remember about Klopp when he came in was that he was very effusive in his affection for players, didn't he? He used to give them all hugs after the game, and I remember some quote about him saying how these players just need love. And I remember thinking that was quite a Christian value, really, that he just wanted to just wrap his arms around them.
Yeah,
and say,
you're right. It's that kind of arm around a player. These are human beings, and he recognised that. These aren't just football playing machines. He was very good at the man-to-man management of players, and he showed emotion as well. Like, he celebrated the wins, he showed frustration at the losses. I think he was a really personable person. I think someone else, quite divisive, but I really liked Jose Mourinho in that aspect. I think he was quite an emotional person and quite entertaining. Yeah. Not necessarily the best man manager. I'm
not convinced I'd want Jose Mourinho managing my team, but he's entertaining to watch.
But I don't know if you watched that documentary following him at Tottenham, but he was quite brutal with the way he spoke to players. But I found him quite entertaining to watch. I love managers that you're excited to hear from?
Yeah, I get that. For me, it would be no surprise to tell you that Tony Pulis is up there in terms of my favourite managers. Again, because of the success. I think all of this, like, the success goes hand in hand with it, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
I think the thing with Tony Pulis was that he was just very stable. You knew what to expect. He never spoke ill of the players in press conferences, and it was very much we'll deal with this behind closed doors kind of manager. That was his style. But I think the moment for me where Tony Pulis went from being just the manager of my club to it being something a bit more special was one of the early seasons we were in the Premier League, and we'd had a poor start to the season. We'd been playing well, and the breaks hadn't really gone our way, and we found ourselves in and around the relegation zone approaching Christmas, and we had this great opportunity to beat, I think it was Aston Villa, and we were all looking at this as like, okay, we've had some hard games, this is the one we can pick up a win. And Tony Pulis' mum died the day of the game, and there was a big message that went out that said Tony Pulis won't be at tonight's game, his mum's died, our thoughts are with him as he goes home to be with his family. Everyone understood that, but everyone felt like, where is he? We need him. And the assistant came out to manage the team. We went 1-0 down early on and just looked a shadow of ourselves.
Yeah.
Second half, the players run out, and 30 seconds later, Tony Pulis runs out of the tunnel to be on the touchline, and there was this roar in the stadium.
Yeah.
We ended up coming back from 1-0 down to win 2-1, last-minute winner. And it was just that feeling of he has put his feelings at this time, his grief that he must be going through, he's put that aside for his team, and it just felt like, oh, okay, this is a man who sacrifices for his team.
Yeah, and I think a similarity there between Pulis and Klopp is this phrase that he just gets the club.
Yeah.
Now that's not something you can quantify. It's not something that you can teach or you can learn. You just get it. And I think supporters really love that. If they can feel that their manager is not just there to get results, they're there to like change the culture of the club, bring this feel-good factor to the club, I think fans really appreciate that.
What do you think about the hairdryer treatment? Obviously, Alex Ferguson was the one who was most widely known. That term came from his management style, giving the players a piece of his mind, and they got the hairdryer treatment if they weren't playing well.
Well, I think every manager's different, aren't they? And that was clearly his way to get his players in gear. I think it only works if you have respect from your players. I think he was quite feared by a lot of United players, and he's obviously the go-to person when you say hairdryer treatment. There's not many managers I can think of that are so synonymous with that phrase. I think it's a very particular style of management that actually, I think particularly as Christians as well, we probably stay away from that kind of mentality of leadership and management, don't we? It doesn't feel like the most godly way of doing things.
And there's a certain point where some players will either respond to that or they won't. Obviously, in Ferguson's case, it really did, and maybe it was just the collective of players that he had for that 20-odd years that he was dominating football. Yeah. But certainly for most players, I think particularly, it feels a bit of an outdated thing, doesn't it? Players these days are less likely to respond well to that. Another question I had for you, Joe, is what do we think about this line between honesty, saying what they think in press conferences, and being encouraging? I'm a manager here at UCB. If my team aren't performing, I will have a conversation with them, but that isn't something I would do publicly. I would do that very privately. I want to be as encouraging I can be as a leader, but some managers, if the striker's not playing well, they'll say so.
For me, that is honesty, it's integrity, and it's transparency. They're three core values of what I personally want to see in a leader. But you're right, there's a balance. There has to be boundaries. You lead a team, you might think someone's underperforming. You're not going to tell the whole office that, are you?
No.
But at the same time, there is a balance.
And I think there's a nice thing there with managers like Gareth Southgate, for example. I think he was somebody who, for all his faults as England manager, he was very good at that man management thing. Players wanted to play for him. Yeah. He trusted players, and players trusted him in return. Should we have a look at the Bible, Joe? I think it's always good if we open the Bible. I've got a few examples here of good leadership that I've found. Moses, one of the first leaders sort of in the Old Testament, and I've written here a few characteristics, a few qualities. Moses had a lot of perseverance. He was somebody who he was doing a job he didn't particularly want to do.
Yeah.
Maybe Ange Postecoglou at this stage. I don't know. He was a reluctant leader, and he was put in charge by God, and he had to persevere with Pharaoh. He had issues with the Israelites once they'd got out of Egypt. He was somebody who had a lot of perseverance. David was somebody who I think was very authentic. I think that's really important in leadership as well. You know, he was somebody who would pour his heart out, you know, in terms of the Psalms, but also when he made mistakes, he was repentant and he would admit to them. Esther is somebody who showed great courage. You want your team to be following you, and you need to take that first step into an unknown territory, even if that's something as small as changing to a back three. You know, you need to follow a leader who's got courage. And then I think for us, Jesus is the perfect leader, and he exemplifies everything that we want in terms of somebody to follow. He was very servant-hearted. We were talking about Klopp earlier. I think that sort of resonates there. He was somebody who led with love, very crucially, led with humility, and then finally led by sacrifice. Yeah. And I think for me, that's what I want, is I want to see a leader who isn't afraid to do what they're asking me to do. I've been in some work situations where leaders have gone, no, this is what you've got to do, and you sort of think, well, you wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? So I think we all have been in places where we've had good leadership and bad leadership, haven't we?
100%. And I think the thing that stands out to me with all these leaders, one, they're people that didn't necessarily want to be leaders.
Yeah.
You know, particularly you said Moses, he's like, why me? Why am I leading these people? And two, they all saw themselves as below the people they were leading, almost.
Yeah.
Particularly, I think the obvious example here is Jesus washing the disciples' feet. That was something that was, you don't do that, Jesus. That's something for people below you to do, whereas he stepped up as a leader to show this is what a leader should do. I'm servant-hearted, I'm here to serve you. And for me, I think that's what I love in a leader as well, that ability to see that even though I might in a work situation be on a higher, position than you, I am serving you as a leader. I'm not above you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing for us to balance, isn't it? Is how can we lead well? Because we'll all have positions of influence. We'll all be asked to lead in some way or another, whether that's in church, whether that's in our workplaces. And I suppose we can just look to the Bible for those examples of good leaders and try and take a leaf out of their book.
Absolutely. Ed, I'm not giving you any more time to have a think about this week's trivia question. How are you getting on?
No, I'm not doing well at all. I can't think. Yeah.
Do you want me to say it again for you?
Yeah, go on. It'll delay the inevitable.
Okay. Which Premier League goalkeeper has made the most saves this season? Quite a simple question.
Yeah.
Quite a short question. A limited number of players to choose from. I'd argue there's 20, maybe 21 keepers that have played this season.
It's
a couple more.
The trouble is I'm struggling to, I'm thinking goalkeepers, obviously Jordan Pickford, Andre Onana will be up there as well. You've got the likes of David Raya, who could be up there. I'm struggling to get the Bible ballers' names.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the whole
point of the quiz.
Of the quiz, though, isn't it? There's a Bible book in there.
You got Mark Travers. Is he at Bournemouth?
He was last year.
He was. Yeah, I think he's there somewhere. He's probably on the bench.
Might be.
I can't think of any goalkeepers with Bible books names, so I'm just gonna have to go Mark Travers. I know it's not right, but
it's quite a good guess. To be fair,
is it?
Sadly, you are incorrect, Ed. Although you did get the correct book of the Bible.
Oh.
The answer is Mark Flecken
for
Brentford,
come on,
who has made a total of 113 saves this season.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot of saves.
That's a lot of saves, yeah. He's in my FPL team as well.
Oh, come on. You should know that, then.
I should know that.
Oh, gosh.
I'm just not very good at this game, Joe. You know that. But no, great question. Loved it.
Thank you.
I want to hear more questions from the listeners.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, if you want to send in your questions, please get in touch. Our email address is podcasts@ucb.co.uk, but that's all we've got time for, isn't it, Joe?
Oh, well, it's been nice to have you back, Ed.
Oh, thank you. Do you think I'm worth an extended run in the team now?
Yeah, I think it's been a good performance. Only let a couple in.
Yeah.
And I think...
Average, 6 out of 10.
Yeah, 6 out of 10. I reckon we'll start you again next week and see how it goes.
Well, we'll go with that, but thank you very much for listening to the Big Man Up Top. Please do get in touch, as I said, and follow, subscribe, and give us good reviews, all that lovely stuff. The key thing is tell your friends. We're trying to get the word out and make this a really exciting community, so please do let people know. Also, just a huge thank you to our producer Anthony Salamat-Webb for all his hard work behind the scenes. We're very, very grateful, and there will be a new episode next Tuesday, won't there, Joe?
I think so.
See you next week.
See you then.